USA is not the land of the free. No matter what you believe, MLK had a dream. That shit did not come to fruition. Thus, I'ma take it upon my own volition. Nah, I'm playing with y'all. Nah, but on the real though, I usually don't have the opportunity to talk politics all that much. Nobody seems to like to listen, but now it seems as though it's pretty essential that I do so now, and that I actually go through and maybe try to help people, give them perspective. I don't know, and hopefully in the process have you guys go through and see what I see, and if we can go through and possibly make change from there. So basically, one of the biggest things is everything that's going on right now, obviously with the racism stuff. Trump, by the way, trying to be annoying. Dude is he's the biggest vexer of all time. You know, he does what he thinks is gonna go through and work because it's been tried and true. You know, at the end of the day, you go through and play the game he's playing as far as appeal to the white supremacists. That's basically how history has, time and time again, why we're in the situation we're in now. So obviously, it's very unpopular to go through and be progressive, if you will, and shoot for those rights. But he's living in the past. That's all I gotta say. He's living in the 1960s and before that even, because I have a feeling that he's gonna have a rude awakening whenever he loses real bad this election. And by the way, any black person that votes for him, man, y'all be some Uncle Tom having ass motherfuckers. But people want justice. People, I love the protests. I love them, and I truly, within my heart, believe that this is going to be the first time ever that we actually do see that people will be willing to have these changes, whereas they weren't willing in the past. Not only there's so many different elements. I'm talking about on the Congress side, AOC herself, one of the best congressional people we have. I just think that overall, just that mentality, that mindset, that's what our Congress needs to be composed of. Moreover, that's what our whole government needs to be composed of. I'm talking about the everything from the legislative branch, executive branch, to the judicial. The Supreme Court justices, come on. I'll tell you what right now. Everyone focuses on the president, right? Anything's bad in this whole society, it's the president's fault. And while they have a lot to do with it, Trump's an asshole, Trump's a bitch, Trump's everything, whatever. You know, love me or hate me for saying that. He's a good economist. Dude's a great businessman. Dude's also a piece of shit human. The guy has zero empathy, humanitarian skills. He's just, again, a person who's gonna die a rich man. But what does that matter in the afterlife if you believe that type of thing? Like I said, whatever. But as a politician, as a president, that's not what we want as a people. What we want as a people. And it was funny because that was brought to my attention the other day. I was having an argument with someone, and it was been brought to my attention that America is just like the greatest place ever, and land of the free, and all this kind of stuff. And America, I'm gonna start offending some hard Republicans. I'm gonna start offending some very conservative people who serve the military. Again, y'all don't know my background, and if you did, you might be a little bit surprised. And my biggest thing is I can still be impartial. I can have served the military, and I can also say that America, it's the greatest superpower, it's the most technologically advanced country. Is it the best? Because there are other countries that are better in other things. Education, healthcare. You got Canada with their free healthcare and all that kind of stuff. They're famous for that. I might say, as a citizen, If I was this crazy entrepreneur, it's your position in life. And that's kind of the issue with capitalism. A lot of people have seen that kind of stuff. Pac saw that too early on. How is it that you got people with tens of thousands of millions and millions of dollars, whatever he was saying over there, but then you have people who don't have anything. And again, if you're really the leader of this kind of country, do you really want that kind of a thing? That's a little philosophical question for you. I don't quite frankly care what your beliefs on that, one way or the other. Nobody cares about mine. Point being, I might argue that America is not the greatest. No, America is not the greatest. A lot of countries who don't have that kind of disgusting background. I think overall the USA has a very disgusting odor about itself that's not going to leave anytime soon, unless we change. It hasn't left hitherto. We're talking about oppression. When you think USA, you think superpower, you think wealthy, right? Money-wise and whatever, good business. You also think oppression, not the land of the free. So I think they should take away that title. I think the Statue of Liberty, like I said, the hypocrites, the way it's founded and everything that's happened since then. I don't think there's been any positive things that have come from that. And yet, nothing's happened. And nothing's happened largely because black people can't stick together. They did at one time, and that's when they got the most done. And I'm talking about with Martin Luther King and all that kind of stuff. But even at that time, you'll notice that even with the large group alone of black people, there was still a big divide. Being the approach is a mild approach versus a more quote-unquote extreme approach. And I say extreme because people hear the name Black Panthers, and unless you've read literature on that, I'm talking many books, unless you have that kind of a background on that part of history, I don't really want to hear your opinion because, again, you don't know what they were about. It wasn't just an extremist group and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they believed in the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, just like anybody else does. They believed that they had a right to go through and defend themselves because, again, what is happening now, because you see all the emergence of all these videos, this shit's been happening then. It's been happening way before then. How do you think it's been happening before their cameras and all that kind of stuff? So again, this stuff has just now been popularized. The stuff is now seeing the daylight now because the technology allows for it. So on that level, I agree with it. Black Panthers, what they really stood for was being a community, was going through and taking care of their own, which is, again, it was a program. Black Panthers, it was a program that provided everything for their people, stuff that the government wouldn't go through and do before that. Because again, the government ain't doing that shit now. I read an article over here in Time magazine that the U.S., and this isn't even that long ago. I mean, my grandfather, he's still alive right now, mid-80s, mid 80 years old, being right after the Second World War. Black people were treated terribly for one, but yet they were expected to go to war. They did. Thing is, black people are the U.S.'s greatest citizens, the most patriotic citizens. When you're talking about patriotism and all that kind of stuff, black people have been loyal to these grounds since day one, even though they were brought here against their will. They were brought here against their will. All that kind of slavery that happened for the better part of 300 years or so, a little over 300 years. Okay, and then all the way until the 1800s, and then in which case slavery stops, right? No, black people fought for the Civil War. They every single time they're in these wars. And so it's funny when one black person, poof, he says what everybody else is thinking, being Muhammad Ali, the Vietnam War, and all that kind of stuff. He got the most hate. His own organization with the boxing stripped him of his belt, and all this kind of bullshit happened to him. But again, What he stood for was 100%. The United States has done nothing for black people. Shit, I mean, all they do is just take from black people. And there's been many beliefs on why maybe this might be. I mean, slavery didn't happen with the Navajo people, any other American Indian tribe. And I say Navajo because I'm half Navajo. And they didn't take them for slavery or nothing like that because they maybe were a little more organized, maybe a little more established, because they were here first after all. Maybe they had the means and the attitudes to go through and fight as a unit, instead of having these completely different mentalities. That's exactly what black people have been doing since day one. And I'm tired of having one black person have this peaceful approach and this other black person having this approach, and nothing gets done because on two different pages. You know, you have Martin Luther King over here and you have Malcolm X that criticizing each other, this and that, whatever. Things don't get done. I respect them both. I respect anyone who stands for the right thing. During slavery, you had abolitionists, right? Like Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington. Some of their words have been controversial at best, even by me. Like I said, I mean, I read and hear a lot of what they stood for and what they said, maybe about us having to go through and earn our freedom. And it's funny because white people never had to earn a shit in their life, freedom-wise or this or that. And that kind of attitude, that peaceful attitude, again, it didn't do any good. But at the same time, same argument could be made with Nat Turner, famous slave who went through and led a crazy ass rebellion and did a lot of major harm. Ultimately died for it. But again, that made the colonies reimagine what they were doing. It was a serious wake-up call. And so my point being, black people, we need to unite. We need to unite, and we need to unite now. And I say this because we have to have the same objective. The same objective. No more broad, very vague ideals of what justice might be to us. We need an actual written out agenda that needs to be met 100%. No compromise. We've compromised far too much and for far too long. I don't give a fuck what Congress wants to go through and say about it, or go through and talk about how things may not be ideal to do this. What I'm saying is, money-wise, it's possible. During this whole COVID-19 thing, it's an eye-opener. They could do reparations for all black people, which was promised right after slavery. Instead of 100 acres, a mule, this and that, you know what we got instead? We got black codes. We got Jim Crow. We got bullshit that we didn't deserve. But people stay quiet about it. People try to go through the system, right? They try to go through the system. Dred Scott tried to go through the system and do things the right way. Got shut down real quick. Plessy versus Ferguson. These Supreme Court cases. Black people try to go through the system and it keeps failing us. This movement, all of what's happening around us, it's been a blessing to me personally. I don't think there's ever been a time in history since the 60s, of course, with the civil rights movement, that this movement has this kind of traction. It has this kind of traction. We have people's attention. Point is, now we give the demands. Okay, we've been protesting for far too long already. Weeks and weeks and weeks of protesting. There were weeks of riots alone. Hey, and you know, the looting, all this kind of stuff, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It got motherfuckers' attention. People want to go through and start criticizing looting and all that kind of stuff in business, and you know, and I'll get on that in my next video. Stay tuned for that next video. I'll talk exactly about how the system and the structure and how that bullshit has led to where we are today. But back to the point being, we've done that. Now it's time to have the agenda. Present it. This needs to be met. It's that simple. If it gets met, we go back to the way we were. We're peaceful people. Black people don't want to be doing all these rioting, protesting, this and that. Black people don't want trouble with the police. Black people don't. I just want to cohabit with the next motherfucker. I want the same opportunities to start a business, to be able to have a family, have a wife. Like I said, the American dream, that pertains to us too. It's not just for the other immigrants. It's not just for white people. Like I said, I just want a piece of the pie too. And the same resources to get a piece of that pie. It's not enough to go through and put it in a place to where only a select amount of people can actually get access to that pie. And then they have all the silverware, they have all the plates, and I ain't got shit. But yeah, I'm told that, you know, oh yeah, you're welcome to it too. Black people are welcome to the American dream. Point is, white people got the jump on the economy, on everything for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. To go through and be able to build, again, generational wealth. And people might say get over it, people might say such a long time ago, but in reality, it really wasn't that long ago. And anybody that wants to argue otherwise, I mean, get the fuck out of here, because it's one of those things to where before 1964, being the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Jim Crow laws existed, black codes and all this kind of stuff, and I'll have anyone know that slavery was very much omnipresent before 64. You know, they say the Emancipation Proclamation, black people celebrate Juneteenth, which I personally don't. Because that wasn't the end of slavery, that wasn't the beginning of freedom. Because what happened after that was just that loophole in the 13th Amendment, which they need to get rid of to this day. That's going to be part of our agenda, okay? Get rid of that clause that says involuntary servitude or whatever the fuck is not permitted unless, right? There's that unless part, the but. And that has to do with criminal status. Boom. It doesn't take a genius to find out that, oh my God, okay, so we can have slaves just as long as they're bad people. Okay. It wasn't long before black people were being portrayed as all these kind of crazy predators or this or that, and vultures of white women and all this kind of stuff, and you have all this kind of craziness going on. Black people, they make up laws now, and the thing is, that's why I don't personally believe in states' rights, because it's hard enough to control the small number of people at the very top, being the federal government and the congressional people, and you have to really trust that people are good within their heart. Imagine spreading that out with 50 states. The probability, math is my background, the probability of corrupt, evil, disingenuous motherfuckers, that's just going to be amplified, raised to the roof, especially with people who have stuff to gain. And corruption's all the time. It's in politics, and it's presented itself over and over again. If a white person can go through and benefit off of this and that, they're going to go through and start making policy to help them. So, of course, states start making laws to where if you walk on the wrong side of the street, it's a crime, you're now a criminal, and now you have to be a slave again. So that was all until Civil Rights Act of 1964. Black people have been going through this. Never once have we had a true fresh start. A true fresh start. I'm just starting out my life. And I want a fresh start, where unfortunately my father didn't have that opportunity. And so many other generations of black people, it's just, it's really terrible. So that's why I personally think that you guys need to stay together. Stand with me. Stand with me. Stay tuned, because next video, I'm talking about the agenda. I'm talking about the agenda that we are going to go through and construct together to go through and hand over these policies. They're met. This can end. That's my goal. My goal, move forward in life like we always have. But the only difference is, don't put a band-aid over it. Motherfuckers have been putting band-aids over it for far too long. And my objective is to get with other like-minded people and construct that agenda. There has to be an agenda. We as a people, black people, need to be every bit as much influential as the Republican Party, as the Democratic Party. We have to have our agenda, our stuff moving forward that works well for us. Because the system that exclusively and unevenly helps this group of people is doing so by oppressing others. And I'm not asking for the reverse. I'm not asking for white people to be oppressed or this or that. I'm asking just boom, eliminate all the bullshit so we can live rather in a true land of the free. Stay tuned, y'all.